Hello, and welcome to a video about creating flumi textures with the Fruity Granulizer in FL Studio. So, pro tip, the Fruity Granulizer comes with FL Studio. It's a stock plugin. You can do this with all stock plugins. I'm using only free plugins to generate melodies here. So everything that I do in here, you can do at home if you have FL Studio. It's perfectly easy to do. I'm not using any effects or anything. I've just created a little bit of a drum loop here to show you what it sounds like with some drums on it. So the first thing that we're going to go over is how to create a flumi texture out of a pre-recorded loop. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your loop. I'm using a Mula melody loop here. I'm not a huge fan of using melody loops. I don't think that Mula is actually all that good at this. I mean, they sound very trappy, very Atlanta. But I think that sound is kind of played out now. So I'm using this one right here. And I've turned it into this. And the way that I've done that is with this nifty plugin right here called the Fruity Granulizer. So I'm going to set it to the default, and I'm going to go through everything that we need to do to make sure it happens. So just to make sure it's a default. So when it's at default and I have the sample loaded in here, you just drag and drop the sample in here when you load up the Fruity Granulizer. It should be right under sampler right here. The first thing that I'm going to do, the very first thing I'm going to do is hit this loop button. And that just makes sure that the sample doesn't end if the MIDI clip is too long. So you see this line right here. If this were to reach the end and I didn't have loop on, it would just stop, even if my MIDI clip kept going. So next what I'm going to do is, you see this rand knob right here? I'm going to go ahead and just turn that all the way up. And now listen what happens. So basically what that's doing is it's jumping around from place to place in the sample and just grabbing a grain. So we can affect that grain size with this grain spacing right here. Now listen to that nice glitchy texture. And then we can screw with the wave spacing. And the wave spacing basically just affects where in the loop it's grabbing samples from. So if you look down here, you can see as I turn wave spacing, it moves through the loop faster or shorter, or not at all. Nothing's happening. It's stuck at the start here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to do the hold. Now this is how long the synthesizer plays each grain. Attack is just how quickly each grain comes. Just like that. So we're going to go ahead and unmute this track in here. And then what you can do to add a groove to this, I know I said I was going to use all free plugins, but I just want to show you what you can do. Kickstart is, I think, a $20 plugin. Pretty cheap, and it's just a little volume sidechain. Actually, you know what? Screw it. We will use all free plugins. I am going to use the Fruity Peak controller, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and link. Actually, no. We use Fruity Balance and Fruity Peak controller. Fruity Balance. Then I'm going to link this volume knob to the Fruity Peak Control LFO. Accept, and bam. And then speed, set, and we want it to be on beat, so 4 steps, and we want it to be a ramp, right? Just like that. And then this is just a little drum loop that I've created to add a bit of a groove. Bam. We've got this nice glitchy pattern going on. Just like that. All right. Next up, I'm going to show you how you can make one from your own melodies. So right here, I've got a little nifty little melody that I've made with this free plugin called Ample Percussion Cloud Drum right here. And it's just a hang drum plugin. And I'm using the mute and short preset because I really like this preset. Right? And I made this little melody. And with the drums, it sounds like this. Right? And then I exported it as an audio clip. And I put it into another instance of the Granulizer, this one right here. And I went through the same process to come up with this. Now this one's a little quieter because what I've done is I've laid it in the background of the melody, so it sounds like this. And you can go ahead and throw the stereo shaper on there. Just like that, to stereoize it a bit. And you can use the limiter here is just for sidechaining to the kick, so the texture follows every time. But what you can also do is down here in dynamics, if you hit the fruity compressor, just push the threshold down a bit, ratio up a bit, attack and release to 0, and then gain it. And then add the drums, and this is what it sounds like. And there you go. You've got a nice background glitch texture. Or you've got a nice texture for whatever kind of vibe you're trying to create in your track. Let's see, what else can you do with this stuff? Well, let's open up a project that I made a while ago. This was just me updating my template for FL20 since I made it in FL12. So I made this project. Okay, I've got my project all loaded up here. So you can see right here. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I've used the Granulizer a couple of times throughout this project. So the first thing that I've done with the Granulizer is I've made these little fills. So that leads from one part of the beat into another part of the beat and introduces a melody that I have using Cloud Drum. this is what that transition sounds like. And then another point in which I've used the granulizer in this project is down here. I'm using the granulizer to add a little bit of ambience to my water sample here. And that sounds kind of silly, but listen. So this is the water sample without the granulizer. Right? Very ambient and stuff, but it's missing something, right? It doesn't hit the ambient points that it should. So I've added a little bit of a granulizer here. Let's see if I can find it. Right here. It's just a clave loop, but it adds a little bit of transient to the water. It sounds like some cans are rattling around in the water or something. So with it, it sounds like this. And in the context of the beat, it sounds like this. Same granular fill going on here. Right? Just to lead in that that hang drum melody. Right. So that's just one beat. But you can use this for a lot of things. Get creative with it. Of course, I'd say perhaps Flume is the master of the granulizer. It sounds like a lot of the things that he makes are made with the granulizer. A lot of those crazy textures and stuff. I've got some of those loops here. So stuff like that is probably, big disclaimer, probably made with a granulizer and by automating different options and stuff on the granulizer. So I mean, get creative with it. You can automate pretty much all those knobs. Find some cool sounds. You can get cool sounds by just throwing one shots in there. I might do a video on that in the future. But as always, my word is not law. You can do whatever the hell you want. But yeah, get creative, get weird, make some good music. All right, I'm out.